Welcome to episode 1 of The Roost.
Episode 1!
I feel so good about saying that. Everyone's been fighting me on it. This is officially episode 1 of The Roost.
The Roost!
And now we have a name for it.
Episode 1!
That feels good. And I hope you all enjoy it. Today we're going to be talking about Breath of the Wild, a very popular subject in Smooth's chat. And, we both agree that it's a good game, overall, and people seem to love it. And, but we're Zelda fans, obviously by, the name of our podcast. And, Matt plays Ocarina of Time more than any normal human does.
Play a lot of that.
And, a lot. And, I've played most of them. I love pretty much all Zelda games, I would say. I don't know. I haven't played through all of them, but so we've got some chops when it comes to Zelda. So we kind of know what we're talking about. We'd like to think so.
We do cover different territory too. Like there's a lot of games that I haven't played that you've played.
Breath of the Wild is pretty. It's interesting. It's a little contentious. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it changed a lot about the formula, but it brought a lot of cool new things, and yeah. So I guess what would be like your overall impression? I know you said this a lot. You said this a lot on stream, but for the people who don't, what is your overall thesis about Breath of the Wild? If you were to explain it in a paragraph,
my whole overall thesis.
If you were to say it's a good game, but this, because I know that I'm kind of feeding it to you, but
like a real general opinion.
Yeah, like a short general opinion.
Well, it's a fine game. I say it all the time. It's fun. It's cool. They put a lot of work into it. They put a lot of love into it. You can tell that. Picking it up the first 2 seconds, you can tell there's a lot of effort went into making this game. But my whole opinion has always been that the more you play it, the less fun it gets, because I think everything is front loaded. The experience is all front loaded. You get all the items at the beginning. You experience all of the world. It's pretty much straight up the Great Plateau where you start on. You basically experience everything that there is in Breath of the Wild on the Great Plateau. You see the same enemies that you see on the Great Plateau throughout the rest of the game, aside from a couple of random bosses. You don't really get any weapon variation. Your standard sword, small sword, big sword. That's pretty much it. Obviously, I don't feel like there's anything story-wise outside the Great Plateau. Just pretty much the whole experience is all just front-loaded. So it feels really cool at the beginning, but then the more that you sink your teeth into it, you're like, where's all the new stuff? Where's the rest of the game? There is no rest of the game. So that's what I've always said. Starting off, Breath of the Wild was one of the coolest gaming experiences I've ever had, because at the beginning I was like, this is incredible. But yeah, the closer I got to the end, the more I was like, wow, what a disappointment.
Yeah. And just for posterity's sake, you have finished the game, yes?
Yeah, I finished the game, but I never played the DLC. I bought the DLC, but I never played it.
Right. And for me, I'm in the end game. So I have the ability to go and beat the game. I have not fought Ganon, but I've done most of the main quests. Obviously, I'm working on the DLC right now. I have played some of the Champions Ballad, and I've taken a stab at Trial by the Sword. So we can talk about I'll talk about the DLC a little bit and what that entails. But for me, I kind of had the opposite effect whenever I played Breath of the Wild. Whenever I first started playing it, I got to maybe I got the first 2 Guardians, and I was in Goron City, and I stopped playing for a year because I was honestly a little bored. I found the game to be a little boring, like tedious, a little gimmicky, because it's like, oh, you have all this options, and it just didn't feel like, I don't know. I was just doing the main storyline, how you would a normal Zelda. You're just going through the storyline. You're kind of going from place to place. And, for me, a lot of that was because, it's a Zelda game, but it didn't feel like Zelda, And I feel like you kind of have a similar opinion about that, because you say it's a good game, but it's not a good Zelda game.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a good Zelda game. I don't know. It's interesting that you say that. Like you go to all the different areas and you're just sort of doing it because they're there. Where I feel like in older Zelda titles, it's obviously not as open world, but you go from dungeon to dungeon and you get your items and whatever, and it always opens up more areas to you all over the place, not just where you're going. Where I feel like Breath of the Wild, that's always been my part of my issue with it is like I just feel like there's no sense of progression. Like the numbers on your weapons get bigger, but that's it. You don't get any new items, you don't get any tools to work with. Like there's a couple of neat gadgets that they give you, but I never really thought it was enough, honestly. And you know, in older Zelda games, everything always. This is kind of maybe jumping topic a little bit, but like, older Zelda games, I felt like it really always felt like a big connected world to me. It's like you got the mountain over there, and you got the field in the middle, and then the ocean over there, whatever. And I don't know. In Breath of the Wild, obviously, like it doesn't not feel like a big open world because that's literally what they made. But it is kind of interesting to me when you're telling me that like you just go to where the Gorons because they were over there and the Zoras because they were over there. Despite it being a big open world, it does feel very segmented. Like it feels like you're only ever going somewhere for like one specific purpose. It's like, oh, I need to go over there to do the divine beast or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. It's just something about it feels so artificial to me, where like the older games felt so organic.
And I feel like, a lot of people are probably going to be thinking we're just old men on our, in our chairs talking about the good old days. But I feel like a lot of it has to do with the way it introduces you to like the plot and the characters. Like I, for one, I don't like how the majority of the plot is explained to you in flashbacks and how you're supposed to be invested in these characters that Link and Zelda already have kind of a a rapport with, and you're supposed to instantly be like, oh, these are the coolest characters and I'm instantly invested in this. They're like, their designs are cool. I like that they're all the different races, so there you have to go to the different maps, but I don't know. I feel like that's my main issue I found with it because I was playing it like a Zelda game and I was absorbing it like one because I was like, okay, there's plot. I'm just, I'm going from temple to temple, and it felt very bland. And like you said it felt very disconnected. Like when it comes to the characters, there are characters that you like. Take Ocarina of Time, for example. The vast majority of them, like you interact with all the characters more than once, throughout the entire playthrough. I would say that they should have handled the choosing, quote unquote, of the champions kind of like they did with like sages. You already kind of have a background with this character. You're like, oh, whoa, like they're a sage, like Saria or Impa. It's like, all right, I'm invested in this character because not because Link is, but because I am, because I know their story and I know, what they've done to get to that point. Like, I don't know anything about the champions. Like in the DLC, the ballad, like the champions ballad kind of gives you a couple more, what's it called? A couple more cutscenes and extra, stuff. But to this day, I could not list off the names of the champions or their little proteges that you interact with, while you're in that area, and Rivali, because I can name Rivali, but because of his Gale, because that's the one I use the most. That power is fucking broken.
I remember Urbosa.
Urbosa. Yeah, like you interact with these people that are supposed to be like champion surrogates, more or less, but they're so unmemorable. Like, I would say that the what's it called? The Zora, Sidon. I think it's Sidon is his name.
That sounds right.
He's memorable because he's a thirst trap. Like he was memed on, and he's just like he's a good guy, and he's like flashes his smile, and but that doesn't make a deep character.
Yeah, he was a husbando.
Yeah, and well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's never been like a really good way to develop, a character. And I don't know, whenever you have a character, for example, like the King of Red Lions, like just as an example, because you're playing Wind Waker right now, you have a consistent character that is speaking to you and explaining, what's going on in the world and what you need to be doing. And, you know, there's a way to kind of build up a character over time, but because it's so segmented, as soon as you're done with that guardian, you never have to interact with that character ever again, or anyone. And I don't know. I just felt that was probably the weakest part about this game. Like, it just, you felt more or less like alone. Not alone, but it was more about your journey and less about
I
the
super
plot.
agree with that. I super agree with that. I think the characters did really suck, and they were like the least memorable and like sort of the biggest letdown. Because like when you do start comparing it side by side to other Zelda games, like I know you used Wind Waker as an example, but like any reoccurring character that starts with you at the beginning and continues with you through the story, like Tetra too, and I don't know. You think about Ocarina of Time, which might be a better example because you can take any one of the sages and like you'll interact with them multiple times as child and adult, and that's and then you get to the end and they're like, oh, I was the sage the whole time, and it's my duty to protect Hyrule, and it's like, that's so cool. Like, wow. Like Darunia is super cool, the Goron dude. You go to him as a kid and you cheer him up with Saria's song or whatever, and he gives you the bracelet, and he's like, go in that cave, he's probably expecting you to die or whatever. He's like, kill the monster, and it's like, okay. So you go and kill the monster, he's like, oh shit, this kid can play. So now all of a sudden you're his brother. And then like you come back as an adult and he's in the temple trying to save the Gorons, and he's like, my brother, I'm so happy you're here, we'll fight together. And it's like, oh shit, this is happening right now. And it's just so cool. Like, I don't know, it builds memorable characters. And it's not like, I don't know, the writing's not crazy, it's an old ass game, but like it just does such a good job of like establishing almost the same exact thing. Like Darunia and whoever the guy was from Breath of the Wild serve essentially the same role narratively, but one's just done well and one's done super poorly, in my opinion.
Yeah. And if, again, spoiler alert, if you're listening to this, you should probably, understand that we're going to be talking about most of the plot. But I can summarize the plot of Breath of the Wild as like basically the Legend of Zelda's whining. Like, she sucks at her job, and those are all the cutscenes you get. Like, it's like, yeah, you can make the argument that, okay, it's about like her relationship with Link and how she's kind of like uneasy at first and then she comes around, but you only experience that through cutscenes. So what you get is like, oh, well, Zelda's kind of a bitch, and then she's like to Link, and then, and she's just like, but, and then there's a whole thing of her, her sense of duty. Like, she's supposed to be like, have this power, but she can't, but she wants to actively be a part of Hyrule's, success. She wants to work with the ancient technology and what have you. But there's not enough. Like, that would be a good starting place, I think. That's a great starting place for, fleshing out a character and a plot, but it just doesn't do enough. Like, it just kind of spoon feeds you some of the cutscenes, and you don't even have to do it. Like, because there's I don't know, did you do the quest line to find all the areas, like all the memories?
I did, yeah. I did all the quests.
Yeah. So if you go out of your way to, find those and, watch all the cutscenes, like, yeah, they're cool, but I don't know. They don't serve the purpose that they traditionally do. But that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think like, and this has always been my opinion, is that like, and this goes back to, it is a good game. Like, Breath of the Wild is a good game, right? Because, they just didn't focus on story. They didn't focus on characters. They put a lot of their resources into building the world. And that's 100%. That's really where it shines, Like, you got credit where credit's due. Like, it feels really good running around and exploring, and the climbing is cool, and like the gadgets that you do have and the items that you do have and the tools that you do have feel good and fun to play with. That pays off. Like, where they did put in their resources, like, you can tell, like, that's good. I just feel like if they had decided to make it not Zelda, it could have been anything, explores the world, then that would have been like, hell yeah, that's amazing. Like, what a great game. But it's like, why'd you call this a Zelda game? There's no Zelda stuff in it.
Yeah. But, that being said, I feel like, at the beginning I was talking about how the beginning I find it kind of boring and tedious, but I lent myself to the experience that they wanted you to have, right? So the exploration aspect is 99% of the reason I play this game, honestly. I feel that it's done the best of any open world game I've ever played. I don't know if your opinion on that, like as far as exploration and the incentive to do so, I think is amazing.
I don't know if I can say it's the best. It's good.
Like, what is your ideal open world game?
Well,
Or I guess what's your favorite, I should say. Well, let me give you my reason. Let me talk about why I think the exploration in Breath of the Wild is revolutionary. Because first of all, it's not procedurally generated. Which, if you're playing a game like Minecraft, for example, procedurally generated inherently has this charm where you have no idea what's going to happen. You go in the Nether and you build a portal, you're going to wind up in whatever biome your seed decides to give you. In Breath of the Wild, every tree, every mountain, every landmark was placed and handcrafted and meant to be, experienced in a continuous way. There's such a variety in environments and landforms where it's, it feels really good to traverse, no matter where you are, and this goes to like just the visual style itself. That plus the exploration make it, amazing. Like, I think the whole game looks like a painting. It's so beautiful, and it does that, and that's all just based on, experiencing it from, a pure standpoint. Like, oh, I love exploring, but they have a way of incentivizing you to do that. I there's so many breadcrumbs where, yeah, you can fast travel, and that's kind of brings me to like my next point. Fast traveling, I think, is handled really well because they're all in the shrines. They're not usually in like the main towns. They're just like wherever you are. And most of the objectives that you have to do for those side quests, are, off the beaten path, so you can teleport pretty close to where you need to be, but you still got to hoof it a little bit. And sometimes you have to, do some searching. You got to fill a puzzle and, also traversing is made really easy with this part of the DLC. Do you know any of the ancient horse armor?
No, I don't.
So it's fucking amazing. First of all, there's an ancient bridle, I don't know, and then the saddle. So both of those increase your horse's stamina, and also whenever you whistle and your horse is on the map, it'll instantly transport it next to you. So you don't have to go to a stable to take out your horse. You're like, oh, I just want to go this way, but I want to go by horse. So it transports it to you, and then you can take off. So
okay, that's pretty cool. If you buy the amiibo, you get a motorcycle.
Ooh!
And you can plop that thing on your Switch anytime you want.
Well, there you go.
No, I agree with you. I don't know. I do kind of want to say, though, that, like, I don't disagree when you say that there's a lot of breadcrumbs and there's a lot to do. Like, first of all, I want to agree that, yes, it's aesthetically pleasing, like, a lot. Like, the sounds, I really like this. I love the sounds of that game. The little ambiances and the music soundtrack and the score and all that. And the sounds are just Link walking and the noises that everything makes. I love it. It's really good to look at. I don't think anywhere in that game really is ugly or uncomfortable to look at. But I don't know. I will kind of disagree with you. You're not wrong when you say that, like, everything was sort of placed and crafted and, the world was sculpted, because it was, but I just feel like it's not all done with meaning. Like, the Korok seeds is probably the only thing that really incentivizes you to search every nook and cranny. And, those, while they do serve a practical purpose and that you can upgrade your inventory spaces with them, I just don't find them that engaging. They're cute and they're fun, but how many times am I going to have to move a rock from here to here? How many times am I going to have to pull out my magnet and put a block where it's supposed to go? And, like, they're not difficult, and they're only, like, 10 different puzzles max. Shoot a balloon, run from flower to flower. There's just not that many. For there being, like, is it like somewhere like 1,000 Korok seeds? It's in the 900s, right?
Yeah, it's like 990.
For there being almost 1,000 of those, and for there only to be like 10 different puzzles. I don't know. I can't really praise it on that. You know what I mean? Like it's cool that they're there, and I like finding them, but like I don't know. They just don't feel very rewarding. So to me, the reward is just looking around, and like I don't know if that makes a good game. So I think it's a great sandbox, but I don't know. That's always been my argument. Is there's just nothing there. There's no substance.
Right.
It's a great empty, barren world with nothing to do.
Yeah, no, I think that they definitely were overzealous with the scale. You know, they could have, they made it big, like they made it huge. So a large part of it, which I don't know, I think it depends on how you look at it, because you can say that it was like a stylistic choice, or because it takes place really only 100 years after the big boom. So you could say that everyone's kind of like spread out away from Hyrule, because one of the big problems that I had is like there's no like there's no hub city. There's two kind of major cities, but there's no like one big city like Hyrule Market or something like that.
That is such a good point. I never even thought about that. Wait, that would have been so cool if there was like some sort of like big hub. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, apocalypse or not, people in a community do better. So there's naturally going to be a need for something to replace Hyrule. So there would have been some kind of makeshift city to where it only has 100 years of history, but it's like big and bustling, Because where did all the people go? Like Hyrule's a kingdom, like it's huge, but there's no people in it. Like every town has like 30 people max, I mean, we can make the argument that everyone died. Did fucking Ganon kill everybody? Maybe, but I don't think that should be a valid excuse for, not having that. And that just ties back to the same thing with like characters, because the characters that are in the towns, like, they each have their quirks. Like, like there's a shopkeeper that stands in the corner just cause, like, and that to me is like a Zelda thing. Like every character has like their quirk. They're, but if they want to make it the scale of open world, they need to compensate for that. They need to have a lot more. Which, and to that effect, I agree with you that, it feels a little empty sometimes. But, it is of the wild,
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So, it's all about how you kind of approach the experience. Because straight up, yeah, it's not, like, the Korok seeds aren't super, like, incentivizing. And, like, yeah, but there's also, like, chests and shrines and whatever. I haven't found all the shrines, to be honest. But so maybe I'm still kind of in the honeymoon phase, but I don't know. I've been in the end game for a while, and I have well over like 120 hours now, because I'm maxing out the armor sets, I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. So every environment that I go to, even if I've been there more than once, because I need to go back to, get a piece of, Nadra's horn or something. So I need to go back to this certain area. But now I know the rules of this area. It's like, okay, it's going to be cold. There are these enemies that I need. So I can go out of my way to either prepare for it and, get fire weapons, or just get more, get, my armor upgraded. The Snow Quill armor, when it's upgraded twice, it makes you unfreezable. So that's something you can do to make your exploration of the game easier, because whenever you're going back to kind of do another sweep, or, you're just trying to find all the shrines or all the Koroks, or you're just doing another visit to get more materials, you are more prepared if you choose to, just because it gives you that option,
I see what you're saying.
But that's like the exploration aspect.
Yeah. Can I backtrack for a second?
Yeah.
I really liked what you were getting at when you said, when you started talking about the whole apocalypse thing. I'd like to make a point on that. So let's think about it narratively, right? It was a bustling kingdom of Hyrule, whatever. The Gan apocalypse hits, right?
Yes.
It's apparently disaster and turmoil. Land is ravaged.
Yes.
Link is put in stasis. Zelda's kidnapped. Blah blah blah. 100 years have passed. You wake up, and does it really feel like an apocalyptic world? Like, think about it. Like, sure, there's monsters here or there, but there are a lot of towns. And do any people in those towns ever seem worried or concerned with the fact that there's a castle not too far off in the distance, just plagued by evil? Does anybody ever seem to care?
I mean, if you think about it, I would say 100 years is at least a generation, right?
That's fair.
So, would the oldest people even remember it? Would they have been there? Like, who was there anyone alive during that?
I think it's stories are gonna be passed down. You got like you're right. There's a couple of little villages. You know, Kakariko's there, and you got the one with the H where you build your house. I don't remember the name of it. There's that one C village that starts with an L. I can't remember that one either. There's a couple little villages, right? You're gonna have older people and elders that speak of the old times, but I don't even know if that's that important because it's still there. All they got to do is hike a couple feet in one direction, look over the hill, and they can see the castle with the fucking... It's just swirling with evil energy. It's basically in their backyard. No one seems to give a fuck. Like, I don't know. And the fact is that the few villages that they seem to be flourishing. They're doing fine. They hardly seem to care about the monsters that are even in the area. It doesn't really feel like it makes sense. The Gerudo one is probably the exception because they're living under the fear of the divine beast stomping on them or something. But like everybody else doesn't seem to care. Like I don't know. Everybody seems to be fine with everything that's happening. So like it doesn't even really. There doesn't feel like there's any pressure. It doesn't feel like there's any active conflict or any reason to do anything.
That's true. Because I mean, what the fuck is Ganon doing? He's just big chilling at Hyrule. Like,
well, apparently,
okay.
I think what's happening is Zelda's like keeping him at bay or something.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
But like, if that were the case, you'd think that people would be a little worried. Oh no, the princess 100 years ago was captured and has been holding back this evil this whole time. Oh well, let's just not worry about it.
No. Like, yeah, that's a good point.
Like that to me, like narratively, I just feel like the game is narratively a disaster because it's like. I think the developers don't want you to feel a sense of urgency. They don't want you to feel like you need to go and save Zelda. So they didn't put it in the game on purpose because they want you to be distracted and explore a whole lot. So then why bother trying to shoehorn in the narrative at all? Is it to sort of hit that Zelda feeling? You know, try and like sort of get that in there at the end. Yeah, it's trying to make you trying to like, oh yeah, I'm Link, I gotta save Hyrule. But it's like, that's never been on anybody's mind until, you know, you just happen to get to Ganon's castle. I feel like nobody even goes to the Divine Beasts on purpose. They just sort of wander in that direction. And then, like, you know, something story-wise ends up grabbing them. Like, when you go to the Zora place, like, Sidon jumps out of the water and he's like, hey, follow me. And then, and that happens in all of the quadrants, I think. So, like, I feel like most of the time people just happen upon where they're supposed to go. I don't know. I think it's narratively a disaster.
I would agree with you. And I can hear people making the argument, well, you know, it's always the meme. Hyrule's in danger. You need to save the princess, but you're over here fishing, right? Like, that's the Zelda meme. In Ocarina of Time, people are getting fucked up. Like Adult Link world is terrible. Like, people are feeling the burn of
it's really bad.
Ganon's rule.
You go to the forest, everybody's in hiding because there's monsters everywhere. You go to the volcano, there's no Gorons because they're all getting eaten by a dragon. Like, it in every part of that world, it's like you feel the effects of what's happening. Like, the narrative is seeped into the world. But that's not the case in Breath of the Wild. There's this huge disconnect between the narrative and the gameplay.
But, that being said, so we can agree that the Zelda aspect of it is very poor.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that, yes.
It is way more Breath of the Wild than it is The Legend of Zelda. I think, before we stray away from hating on it for a second, because I kind of want to talk about the dungeons too. Man.
Let's do it.
Like, because I feel like we both kind of talked about it a little bit, but it just felt like, you know, a copy-paste, don't make it look like you copied my homework. Like, it's different puzzles, kind of different areas, kind of like it.
Are you talking about the shrines or the dungeons?
I'm
'Cause
talking
those are-
about the okay. I guess those are two different things. I'm talking about mainly like the beasts, the divine
Okay.
beasts.
Okay.
So, because I think we were kind of having a discussion about what constitutes a dungeon. They heavily imply that those are the dungeons, right?
Right.
And they're not. I don't know. They don't feel good. Like, it just feels like, all right, I'm walking through this, this stone giant, and it's just like a couple puzzles that take max, 20 to 30 minutes to get through the entire dungeon. It feels like it doesn't feel very satisfying. And yeah, there's cool mechanics, like you interact with the Sheikah slate, and there are some, clever puzzles, but I don't know. It never feels like, the Deku tree, or like the forest temple, or Hyrule, whenever you're I don't know, whenever in Wind Waker or something. There's no theme, and I feel like they had a gigantic missed opportunity to make Hyrule sized dungeons. And by Hyrule, I mean like in Breath of the Wild, Hyrule is amazing. I love what they did with it. There's multiple entrances. There's so many ways to get through it. There's so many rooms. There's so many nooks. Like, they should have extended the exploration aspect of the game to the dungeons. Like, have one of the temples be like an overgrown temple in like one of the jungle areas, or like a pyramid in the middle of the dunes, right? But have it be fucking massive, and have it have that scale that Hyrule does. Because
that would have been so cool.
That to me, like, that to me is what it should have been. Like,
that would have been so cool.
Like, because I feel like that's a no-brainer, right? So they could have been really great. It could have been so thematic, and they could have had different theme music, like have it like fade in as you're coming in, like, because that to me is a very big part of the ambience. But whenever you're in a divine beast, you're just kind of hearing some clunking, and and that's it. And the bosses, Jesus Christ, don't get me started. Like, they have different movesets, barely. And to me, one of the biggest charms about Zelda, the things I love about the most, and the things that are the most memorable, are the bosses. Like, the design of them, like the moves that they do, how they relate to, the temple they're in, and it doesn't have any of that. It's just the same boss, just a different flavor. This one's a water one, this one's a wind one, etc. And I hated them. That's why I got bored, because I was only doing the main storyline, and I'm like, this is trash, because I was comparing it to the depth that they went in for, every other Zelda game.
Yeah, I agree. No, you're so right about the dungeons and just like the missed opportunity aspect of it. Like, that's such a good idea, having, like, when you said like a big pyramid on the desert, like I was like, oh, why didn't they do that? That sounds awesome. But like, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that their focus was on something else. It was building the world. They weren't focused on making exciting dungeons or anything. They did want it to be copy and paste. But it's so ironic, isn't it, that they had the opportunity to make dungeons integrated into the world, into the wild, if you will, in Breath of the Wild, and instead they went with like the most generic, like, they all look the same. They all work the same. All the puzzles are the same. And so like in older Zelda games, the dungeons are always, the dungeons, the temples, they're always like, again, they're part of the world. Like, they're built into the narrative, and it makes sense. Like, all the adult temples in Ocarina of Time are literally temples built to worship the sage of that element out in whatever part of the world that it's in. And, Majora's Mask, every area of the world that has a dungeon or is like part of that area. Like, Snowhead Temple is on the top of the mountain, and what's the water one?
Great Bay.
Great Bay is like out in it's in like a
Mhm.
typhoon or whatever. Like
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like imagine like it's so, and it didn't even dawn on me until you were saying it. But like when you were like have the music fade in and out, I'm like, oh wait, he means like it's not like a loading zone. Like you don't walk into. I love that. It's like you don't walk into like a door to go into the temple. Like it's exactly the same way with like Ganon's castle, where
Mm,
you can sort of approach it from whatever way you want, and you just beating the temple is the only goal. That would be so cool. I thought
yeah.
that would be incredible. I can't believe they didn't do that. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And the
And
bosses agree. A complete letdown.
yeah. And I don't know. Like I'm not sure why, they decided to go with that. And we'll say it once, we'll say it again. It's because I feel like this was a test run. This was what they thought they could turn Zelda into, and if it did well, then they would continue on the path, which obviously it did. We'll talk about that later, but
Is that a segue?
that's not a segue
Okay.
yet. But they did change the way that combat works, for example. Like, that's a segue if you ever heard one. At the basic level, I thought the weapon degradation was really annoying, and I thought that, I don't know, like I have all these weapons and they're all shit, and I have to budget, But the more you play the game, in my opinion, the more I played the game, the more I found every interaction to be more fresh, right? Because your first decision, right, is do I engage this camp or do I not? Like that's number one, right? So, and all of these things that I'm about to talk about are all to do with weapon degradation. Like degradation, I could put that up on a fucking wall. I actually love it, right? I think it's one of the best things about the combat in Breath of the Wild, because how do I put this? It forces you to be on your back foot in the most satisfying way ever. Does that make sense?
Explain.
So, okay. So I'm in an area, I'm trying to, farm some materials, but like between me and there is like, a mob of Lizalfos, icy Lizalfos, whatever. I look in my inventory. I don't have any fire weapons, but I have, I have a couple arrows, maybe a couple bomb arrows, whatever. But, I have the option if I want to, like the physics engine lends itself to using everything you have at your disposal. If I want to be, extra, I'll drop some flint and wood, light it, line up my arrow, fly through the fire and hit the Lizalfos if I want to. I can do that because I'm being efficient with my resources. And in the end, as soon as I defeat that mob, I'm going to get some gear, I'm going to get some materials that I can use to sell later, or I can use to make something else. And I think that it keeps it fresh too, because yes, you make the argument that there is very, very, very limited enemy selection, which I 100% agree with you. I think that the world is big enough to where there shouldn't be just red, blue, black, and white versions of the Moblin, right? There should be, more than just ice choo-choos to kind of remind you that you're in an ice area, right? There should be more environmentally stationed enemies, right? But the difference is every time you fight the same mob, even if it's in the same area, you're going to have different equipment. You're going to have, different, armor at that point. Maybe you're on the run back. And I don't know. I feel like this game brings it back to a melding of environment and combat, because everything in that area you can use to your advantage. There's random metal blocks, and those, okay, they don't do a lot of damage, but, you can use it to, avert where they're looking to kind of go over there. And then, I don't know, you can steal all of their shit. And, that's how you take it that way. Or if you have a wealth of weapons, you can just say, fuck all that, put on your barbarian armor set that increases your attack, and just go down there and kill everybody. Like it makes you a part of the wild, you know, because maybe there's a big patch of grass, light it on fire, you know, when you're on the runaway, and then, you know, you fly up using your glider, drop a couple bombs, you know, I just feel like it places you in an area more than like Ocarina of Time does. Like and I'm kind of borrowing this point from like the Ego Raptor video, right? So his whole thing, his point about Link to the Past was that he liked the way that, you know, you're in this area and you're also fighting, but you have to like also be aware of where you are. And in this game, you have to be aware of where you are because it might be used to your advantage. You know, if you're at the top of a hill, you can kite one of the enemies and drop a bomb behind you. It's going to roll behind you, and then you can detonate it, you know? And that's just like an example, right? But that's just how I think of it, you know?
I agree. No, I think I don't. Okay. The combat, yes, there's a lot of room for expression, and that's cool, right?
Mhm.
That's a great thing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess it just kind of boils down to like me as a player. I'm not
Right.
big brain like Aegis. I'm small brain like Doge. I see a group of enemies, I'm just gonna just run in there and just start smacking them.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not really gonna. I don't know. Maybe like it's just me, right?
Right.
I will admit that this is just me. I don't really get my rocks off to like, you know, doing something crazy strategic or like outlandish to sort of overcome an objective. I'd rather just get it over with because I don't know. I don't really find it that satisfying in that game anyway, no matter how you approach it
Mhm.
personally. And I know that's just me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I'm glad that the option's there, but that just doesn't appeal to me personally. It's just different. It's a different design because like older Zelda games, it's like they give you an item and it's like this is what it's for. This is what it does.
Mhm.
Here's a boomerang. It stuns the enemy. It brings items to you. It's great. You know, Breath of the Wild doesn't really do that. They give you the magnet thing, and it's like you know you can do whatever you want with it. The stasis, do whatever you
Yeah.
want with it. That's great and all. I'm happy. I guess I just prefer a wider arsenal with more specific uses, is what it boils down to. I
Yeah.
prefer having more things to pick from that do a specific thing than having a few things to pick from that can all do the same thing,
Yeah. I mean,
which is everything.
yeah. No, I mean that's a valid point. And it, you know, it's like you said, it depends on your playstyle because like, and we've always talked about how you know, you blow through games because you're very goal oriented and you want to get through it. Like this is like they're saying you need to go from point A to point B, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go in a straight line. You know,
I'm also very good at running past things too. Like
Right.
if there's a group of enemies in my way and they don't seem all that threatening, I'm just gonna go ahead and ignore them, and I'm just gonna just trot my way right through their little encampment. Like whatever. Like are they gonna catch up to me and kill me? No, they might hit me once or twice. Whatever. There's so many hearts in this. I've got an inventory filled with 16 full HP bars worth of food. I don't care about getting hit once or twice. But not everybody thinks like that. Like sometimes when people play games, they're like they take every moment to like really play the game. But sometimes I'm like, this just isn't worth it. I'm just gonna go ahead and walk through this.
Yeah. No, and that's where the reward aspect of engaging in combat is never super clear. I just on principle always engage. Just cuz I don't know. I like the challenge and I always get stuff because I feel like I'm always properly rewarded for engaging because I get more weapons because whenever you're in kind of higher level areas, they have some pretty good stuff, you know. And then you open the chest that they have and then it's like a really good item. And you know, and back to like the weapon degradation thing. At first, you know, it's really easy to be kind of a miser and use only your shitty equipment, and but in the end you're always going to get more stuff. And like back to your point about, you know, there's not a wide variety. I agree with you. There's very they're very categorized in their use and, you know, what their capabilities are. Some just do more damage than others. Some are more effective to certain enemies than others. But when I have, when I'm with a group of enemies and I have like a random claymore and a longsword and a Lazal boomerang, I'm, I'm going to smack them with my claymore a little bit. It's going to break. I'm going to chunk that thing at their face and immediately pull out my Lazal and start, doing a wide sweep, kite them a little bit, drop some bombs. It's just, for me, it's just like, all right, we're moving. It's the rotation, right? And I've learned to not be married to any of my equipment. I can, not use it on like a moblin, or like, the night mobs, like the skeleton ones, but,
I would like to just clarify that I actually don't have a problem with the weapon degradation either. Degradation? Am I saying that right?
I think it's degradation. Someone's gonna
degradation. I don't have a problem with that system. I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm not married to my weapons either. I don't think any of them are particularly that good. It's once you get the Master Sword, you don't need any anyway. And I've never fought any mobs in my life to begin with, so I don't really. That system doesn't bother me at all. My biggest issue with the weapons is the same as it is with the enemies. I feel like there's no variety. You have a broadsword, one-handed sword. You have the same sword but electric. It's a different color, same sword, but red, and it's fire this time. And the numbers are always different. That's the only thing that changes. You have all of those examples, but with a two-handed weapon. And then you also have like an axe, which is just a two-handed weapon. It's the same exact moveset. It does the same exact things. It's not. At the beginning, I was like, "Oh, axes are cool because you use those to cut down trees," and then I realized you can cut them down with anything. That's not unique. Yeah. and then it's like you find the boomerangs, and that's cool. Like you can throw them the same way you do with your other weapons. It's just that they come back. That's great. That's like a one neat little gimmick to it. But if you aren't throwing it, it's exactly a one-handed weapon, same exact moveset. It's just a different number. The leaf is probably my favorite because it's like the only one that feels unique. It's like the only unique weapon in that game is the leaf. And you also have the rods, but the rods are just one-handed weapons with like a laser that comes out of them, or like a bouncing fireball. So like I don't know. You have like, I know you said like you'll have like a one-handed sword or a claymore or like a boomerang, and so you pick between those. But like a lot of times I found my inventory being 8 of the same weapon just with different numbers and called something different. And then it's like, which one do I use? The one with the biggest number. Great. Good decision. So like to me, I just hated that. I hated that. I don't know. There was just no variety for me. And that coupled with the fact that there was only so many enemies just made every encounter feel exactly the same. But that goes back to the way I play and how I just approach everything. Very small brain like Doge.
Well, yeah, and if I would agree with you based on, small brain Doge, mentality. I would agree with that. I think that in lieu of having, what's it called? Weapon variety, it's just situational variety, right? It just kind of goes back to where you're at, what your current goal is, what your loadout is. If you're planning on fighting a Lionel later and you happen to have this equipment, you're not going to be using your best weapon on the mob that you're fighting. But I still kind of want to, just because I want to get some stuff. So I feel like that's where they took the variety. They took it out of the weapons and more into the situation of it.
Which is fine. Yeah. And yeah, you were mentioning that you'd like take every encounter, which is really funny because I've been doing a hero mode playthrough on stream just for fun. I would like to say that I haven't been focusing on anything story related. I haven't gone to any dungeons. I've hardly done any shrines. I just kind of run around and dick around. But I've actually taken a complete opposite approach. I think 0 encounters because hero mode actually makes it miserable. I don't know if you tried it.
They regenerate health, right?
Yeah, if you don't hit something for like 2 seconds, it starts regenerating health. So when I was on the Great Plateau with my 6 sticks or whatever, I was like, I'm gonna go kill the Lionel over there, and I went and tried it, and I got like fucking half health. All my shit was broken, and he started regenerating. I was like, all right, cool, go me. So I don't know. I was like, I'm not doing any fights. I don't care. I don't. It's just, to me, it's just not worth it. It's just, I don't know, a lot of whacking. I don't know. It's not my favorite part.
It's the play style is not conducive to hero mode, I guess.
I mean, I don't even like. What about you though? Because have you tried hero mode?
No.
So, because you're saying you like to do some fancy stuff,
And I
you
mean,
know,
and I'm talking in general, and I feel like hero mode would be miserable for me too, because sometimes I cheese them, and I'll do some damage, I'll go around the other side and then hit them from the back, and I'll do
yeah, I'm a big cheeser.
and in that time, they would have already regened, so then it forces me to, do kind of what I'm doing, but to be way more meticulous with it, because now I'm expected to, one or two shot this guy. So I have to be very particular about what I'm using and when.
Right. Overall, for me, the combat leaves a lot to be desired.
Gotcha.
And one thing I'd like to say about the enemy variety is that, like, I know I keep saying there's not that many, and objectively, I guess there are a few more than not very many. I just feel like a lot of them are real throwaway. Like the bats they're just throwaway enemies. The Wizrobes are cool, but they're just, you don't see them very frequently. The Guardians are fine, but I feel like they're more of a novelty. I more so mean like the enemies that you find everywhere.
Right.
And I feel like that boils down to 3 enemies, and it's the Bokoblins, and then the Moblins, and then the Lizalfos, and that's all it's got. That's all it has.
Agree.
Which is a bummer. Why they couldn't? I don't know why they even decided to stick with old Zelda enemies. I wish they would have designed some new enemies. I would have liked to see some new enemies.
I mean, the most they did was just borrow the name and redesign them. Like,
I mean, they're more or less are very similar. I feel like in design.
Yeah, they just kind of contextualized it for the wild.
Yeah.
That being said, I think this is goes along with what I was saying in stream whenever you were talking about it the other day. I was like, the exploration is great, but cooking sucks. So in regards to crafting, and I put crafting in quotes because it's pretty bare bones. Like I said, it wasn't, or we've said it once, said it again. It wasn't their main focus, but I think what they did do with the crafting was pretty cool, and I feel like they can build on that. Like armor, for instance. I think that whenever you upgrade it and they add extra like cool little effects to them, I think that's so cool. Like the Sheikah set, when you upgrade it twice, you're faster at night. So it's thematically consistent, and also it's like, okay, now it's more incentive to switch between sets and to upgrade sets that I already have, because then I'm like, oh, well, what does this do? And then, yeah, you can look it up on the internet and find out, but, that's not fucking fun. But I think one of the biggest complaints is just, like, quality of life. I wish there was a way to have presets, like, to have a set that you can just press one button and boom, you're instantly in your entire set. I can't tell you how many times, like, it just takes too long, because, yeah, I'm switching between sets constantly, like, depending on where I'm at. If I'm in the mountains, I'm using my Snow Quill. If I'm in Death Mountain, I'm using my, my Goron armor, obviously. But I just wish, sometimes I'm just in regular Hyrule, and I just want to wear a set that looks the coolest, right?
That's what I do. I do the same thing.
And
but everywhere, not just in Hyrule.
Exactly. And I feel like I should be able to mix and match them. And, because whenever you sort your inventory, it sorts it by set, right? So if I want to wear my ancient chest and legs, but I want to wear my Sheikah mask, because that's my go-to loadout right now, because I just think that looks the coolest. I just want to have that be a set, and I just press one button and it instantly changes me. And include that with weapons too, and so you're not bogged down by menu navigation. I think menu navigation is one of the biggest wastes of times in Breath of the Wild, personally, because I'm constantly switching items, and because whenever I'm cooking, which I'll get to that in a second, because I think cooking is trash. But
I love sitting in menus.
But yeah, as far fuck. Okay, so upgrading is really cool. I actually think that grinding for the materials is really fun, personally, because they're thematic, and then, you're finding a bunch of hightail lizards for, your your climbing outfit, because those give you stamina and or those make you faster. Sorry, the hightail mids make you faster, and you find them mostly in the mountains where you're going to be climbing. So you're going to wear the climbing set to find them. It's just like stuff like that. But I do think that they should have had some kind of added aesthetic every time you upgraded your armor, right? I feel like they missed out on that too, because okay, I've maxed out this armor set. It should look maxed out. I should look like I am like loaded, right? It shouldn't look. I think it should look different than when you first get it, right? Because you're adding attributes to it, and you can argue that it's just like she's just sprinkling it with magic, right? But it's like, come on, man! It's an open world game. I want to look cool, and I want my ancient armor to be like a huge, like I want like embellishments. I want it to look like this is a maxed out, top of the line armor set, right? And that's just my personal aesthetic preference.
That's a good point, because that could have probably been something that would have been really easy, and it would have felt really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, it's not easy maxing out your armor sets. Like you got to get a lot of stuff sometimes, depending on the set, of course. Like,
right.
But I don't know.
Can I just say, I like cooking. Is it the most like explored idea in the game? No, but I think it's fun and it's exciting seeing how many different rice balls I could make. I don't know, dude. I like it.
What's your experience with cooking? Tell me about it.
I would throw the first 5 ingredients in my inventory into a pot, and whatever it gave me, I ate. And I would do that until I was out of ingredients. I liked it. It served its purpose.
But yeah, no, my personal opinion on cooking, I just feel like it's a fucking mess, honestly. Like, yeah, you find recipes in the world, and that's cool, but there's no maybe I just like things to be more streamlined, but I would love for there to be a recipe book of things you've already made, or to have the attributes of the materials that you have listed as numbers, not just, oh, this has this effect, and if you add these 3 different things, it adds your duration, or it adds to the effectiveness of it, right? So those are the basic rules of cooking. If you have 3 ingredients that are all different but do the same attribute, then you get a higher level of potion, or whatever you're making. And if you do 3 of the same, it's going to be the same level, just more duration, right?
Right.
But a lot of the time, like, I want to make something that's worth making. And half the time I'm just kind of, again, just scrolling through menus, kind of guessing, to see like, oh, well, this, this says that it's stamina, but then I have to keep scrolling and read every single one, to see which is going to go with which. And I feel like whenever I cook, I'm always unsure about what's going to come out, because I feel like sometimes I feel like things are going to go together and then they come out with the dubious plate. And I'm like, well, I'm just wasting materials at this time, because sometimes you're using really rare stuff, and sometimes I want to know exactly what it's going to do whenever I come out. And not to say that you should know instantly as soon as you pick up a material what it's going to do, but I think they should have added some kind of like research aspect to it. Like maybe if you log it in your compendium, it tells you more about the ingredient or the material. Or if you just eat it by itself, then its effect and its stats. Or just maybe have maybe like a research aspect to where you can either eat it or you can take it somewhere to like, to find out like a second effect of it. For example, like eating it does what game does that? Do you know what I'm talking about? I feel like that's been done in a game.
It has to have been done in a game.
Like you eat it and then it reveals like the first effect of it, right? And then, or you take it to a lab.
That does sound so familiar. Yeah.
And then you take it to a lab, and then they reveal like the second effect that it can do, something like that. To where
you know what I was thinking? Put the hub city in that we were talking about earlier, let there be a restaurant where you can take ingredients and have them cook for you if you want, or you can just have them tell you what it does. And then next door, there's like an alchemy building, and you can take the monster parts, and they'll tell you what you can do with those, and you can make potions with them.
And
There
like
you go.
there's certain advantages and disadvantages to, making it on your own, like out in, the wild versus making it in the city, you get different things depending on how it's prepared, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. So like the yellow extra hearts, maybe those will only happen if you cook them in the city.
Yeah.
Because it makes more sense that if you're out cooking in the wild, like you're not going to be
It's
making
on the
gourmet
fly.
food. Yeah. That would have been really cool. And I agree with what you're saying. I think there should be some sort of like add it to the compendium. What do all these ingredients do? Tell me what their stats are when you cook with them or whatever. Also, while we're on the topic of it, all this quality of life stuff, where's my fucking storage chest in my house? How come I've only got 3 places to store weapons? Why don't you give me a box or a closet where I can store like 50 of them?
Yeah, because I'm forced to choose, because I'm basically hanging ones that are aesthetically pleasing or are the guard ones. The guard weapons are fucking cool. Like, because right now on my sword racks I have the fire and ice, and then in the middle I have the Royal Guard Claymore. So like, because I'm such a whore when it comes to aesthetics and making things look good. Like, yeah, I can have 3 golden claymores up there, but it's like, but that's boring. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that, And I feel like they did that on purpose, just so you're not like stockpiling weapons and you're constantly having to make that decision to, give up something if you want to take something with you, So I feel like they should have added it, and maybe late game give you the option to purchase storage for like a ridiculous amount of money, for example.
Yeah,
I feel like that would have been...
Yeah, you wouldn't start with it, but you'd buy it and just like you did the rest of your house.
Yeah, and you upgrade everything, and then at the end of upgrading your whole house, you're like, all right, I can add some storage space, but I'm going to have to, go to the next town to get all this shit or whatever. But, so it's going to be expensive, So it rewards you for, going out and getting the funds that you need. And, maybe it's only an extra inventory's worth of storage, right? But I feel like even that's really like good. I was looking for the word besides good.
Good is good.
Good is good.
All right, while we're talking about inventory space, where's my horse inventory? Like, let me buy my horse some bags and let me put some swords in there.
That's that's a good idea. I mean, it is a beast of burden, if you will. It should bear some of my burdens.
Like, I get what you're saying. Like, that was a decision that they made to make it so that you have to like decide what you keep and what you don't. But why though? It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun trying to having to throw away a cool weapon because you don't have enough inventory space. And then, like, Nintendo's over there. Well, just go get the Korok seeds. It's like, please, why are you like this? Why did this game happen?
Oh man! And the last point I was gonna make about, I just started to come back to my hatred of cooking, but yes, inventory. I don't know. I have a love hate with inventory. Just to, I guess, wrap that one up. Like, I find its confines intriguing, just because I have the biggest hard on for the weapon degradation. So I don't super hate it. I end up having way more shields than I ever use, honestly. But I think the weapon inventory space is severely lacking, and those end up getting really expensive as far as Korok seeds. But my last point about cooking is a menu thing, right? I feel like it's so inefficient because with every one item you're cooking, you have to individually pick your ingredients out of your inventory. Some may find that to be, kind of charming because he's holding them in his hand and then he cooks his one meal, right? Because that's how normal people cook. But when I cook, I'm cooking for an entire third of my day. It's serving a long purpose. When I'm cooking in Breath of the Wild, I make something. It's like, okay, I'm making a quick potion. Maybe I don't have enough ingredients to make it level 3, but I just feel like cooking is super expensive. Except when it comes to potions, like health cooking is really easy because then you can just like put a bunch of meat in a pot and then you have a bunch of hearts. But whenever I'm trying to make potions, like quickness potions or like electricity resistance, because they want you to do that. Like they give you plenty of materials to make it, but it ends up being way too expensive to be worth it. Because I'm like, oh great, I made a potion that lasts 2 minutes that gives me 1 bit of electricity resistance, right? It just doesn't seem worth it to me. And like
you're right. Yeah, when are you ever taking so much electricity damage that's something that you need?
And like if it's going to be in there, make it last a while. Like look, if I'm going to be using an electricity resistance potion, I want it to last a while, right? Because it's going to be used for a pretty intense fight. Like if I'm fighting a Lionel, like, and I have thunder arrows, that would be a place to use it, but it's just too expensive to get the materials to do it. And, you know, and people can argue that that's a design choice too, but I think that that's annoying.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think that is annoying.
And the menu navigation in itself just takes forever. Like, I don't like bulk cooking. I'll just cook 3 meals and move on, you know? Because
I did a lot of bulk cooking.
It's just because I feel like I would be there for the next 30 minutes, you know, and you know, I'm trying to do some shit, man. I'm not trying to stand around and cook all day. And you know, that might have been a design choice too, because if you have a bunch of shit stockpiled, you know, there's not going to be that much danger, I guess, because you can just eat as much as you want, you know.
You talking about this is just, I've had an epiphany.
Okay, let's hear it.
And this doesn't just apply to Breath of the Wild or Nintendo. It's like games, I feel like in general these days, is developers approach games with like a mentality of sort of like, I'm going to call it like the E3 presentation, right? Mm-hmm. They like I'm hearing you talk about like your experience with cooking, and you're like, yeah, it's cool because he holds them or whatever. And I'm thinking back, like, yeah, I remember watching the E3 reveal for Breath of the Wild, and as soon as he threw those ingredients in his hand, I lost my shit. I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. But is it fun? Is it practical? Is it a good game mechanic? It makes people want to buy the game when they see it at E3 because it's like, whoa. But then it's like, how often are you going to be doing it? Does the menuing take that long? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it looks really, really cool the first time. But then after that, it's like, why do I have to do this every time? Like, I've seen this already. You know what I mean? Yeah, I feel like a lot of times games are made with that idea. It's like, they have this idea and it's really cool. And when people see it, they're going to love it. But after they do it twice, they're never going to want to do it again. But unfortunately, it's very important and you have to do it all game. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like developers, like, they make games with like the intention of like just looking cool, and they don't really like they don't really like think about like how is it practical? Is it like a fun game mechanic? You know what I mean?
Is its main attraction being visually gimmicky, right? Like, in a tech demo, like you said, it looks really fun, and it's like, wow, like, I'm actually, like, cooking, like, you know, and it's doing this, and they put some chili peppers in it. Oh, now I can explore the mountain area. And it's like, but that loses its novelty because you just get an armor set that does the same thing. Why am I going to cook? There's no reason for me to go out of my way to do that. Now, if I'm fighting something like a Lionel, it's like, okay, I'm going to make a bunch of meals that are just a bunch of hearts, a bunch of meat, right? But then I'm not exploring the the other, like, the potion aspect. I never make potions ever because the materials are too expensive and it's just not worth. So, and that's it.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Rapid fire. Tell me one idea that we haven't talked about yet today that could have been something in Breath of the Wild that you think would have been awesome. Go.
one thing, man, I think that being able to individually color my armor sets.
Okay, all right.
That's like a very small part. Okay, look, I think the armor sets in Breath of the Wild look great. I feel like they should be more customizable. I think that, and I feel like a lot of the things that I feel they could improve on, or they should do, they are gonna do. Like the fact that the mechanic exists to customize your armor, they're only gonna add on top of it because that's just Nintendo style, right?
I got an idea. Because I like your idea. This is just something that is just a random thought that came to my head, and I just wanted to share it. What if in the towns you could hire like bodyguards that would travel with you? What if while they were traveling with you, like you could hire a Goron or like a Zora or something or a Rito or whatever. What if while they were traveling with you, they gave you quests? What if they had like personalities and shit? What if you got to know them over the course of like your journey together, and you could like wouldn't that have been that would have been really cool? That's just something I don't know. Just a random idea that I thought would have been really neat.
That, like what you just said, just made me salivate and made me think of Mass Effect, because that's a huge part of Mass Effect is your squad members. Like they're wanting you to, be involved in their problems once you have enough. I keep saying the word rapport. I think rapport is the word of the day. But yeah, that's a really good idea.
Cool. I'm glad you think so.
So, what do you think? I don't know. What do you think about Breath of the Wild 2? Because I heard you said that. I don't know. Just tell me your opinion.
You want to know? You really want to know how I feel?
That's why we're here.
I'm insulted.
That's why the people are here.
I'm upset.
Okay.
It makes me mad.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just like I get it, right? We talked about it already. They focused on building the world. That's great. Now they've got this world. They're going to put a game in it. That's cool. Breath of the Wild came out in what year was it? Like 2015, 2016 or something?
Well, I looked this up. It was 2017.
2017 of March. So we're looking at it took them 3 years to finish making Breath of the Wild 1, and now they're calling it Breath of the Wild 2. I'm insulted. I'm upset.
And it's not even done yet. It's in development. So
who knows?
there you
Yeah,
go.
maybe it won't even be until 2021. Who knows? Probably Christmas of next year is more what we're looking at. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm upset. I'm mad, and it's fine. I'm sure it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be really good. I think it's gonna be what I thought Breath of the Wild 1 was gonna be, with actual story and characters, and it's also going to have those same elements from Breath of the Wild 1. But I don't know. It makes me mad because I think about how Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. You can look at Majora's Mask as just Ocarina of Time 2. They made Ocarina of Time. They made all these assets. They brought Zelda to 3D or whatever, and it was a blowout hit. What they did is I don't remember the exact dates, but I think it was a year later, maybe not even. They released Majora's Mask because they took all the same assets and they just threw together another game, and they didn't want to go and make all the new assets and everything. They just reused them, and that's fine. Go ahead. They did it in a timely manner, and they made 2 games. But this time it took them like a combined development time of I don't even know, like 10 years maybe. That's probably a bit of an exaggeration. And they're only making 1 game. Like, it's just 1 game. It's gonna be 1 game after Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. It's just gonna be 1 game.
I don't disagree with you. I think that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be a vastly superior game. And
it's gonna be the finished product. That's why it makes me mad. Breath of the Wild 1 wasn't done, but they were like, it's not that it wasn't done. It's that they thought it was done. It's not that they knew it wasn't done. They said, this is what we wanted. Let's go. This is fine. Print it.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't a game. But Breath of the Wild 2, they're filling in all the blanks, and then that's actually going to be the finished product.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know, because they made Breath of the Wild 1. It was a large departure from the series, right? Like, I feel like everyone can agree that Breath of the Wild is the most different, one of the more different Zeldas, to ever come out. Very unique. It changed everything, So I feel like they just kind of played it safe, and I feel like production cycle may have had something to do with it because they may have wanted to put more in it, but at some point they made and some can argue the wrong decision to stop at a certain point and be like, this is the stopping point. And like you said, and then just put that out, and maybe they just wanted to see what the reception was, how people took it. Because with a game like Zelda, it's a big deal to put it out there, especially if it's so different. So I don't know. I do agree with you that it is, I don't know. It's kind of, it is insulting to a certain degree because it's Zelda. Like, every game should be its standalone experience, right? There's very few times where a sequel is like an all-out sequel. Like Link Between Worlds, you don't have to play Link to the Past. Is it a sequel? Yeah, a lot of people argue that it is because it's the same perspective. It's like more or less the same map. They have similar like mechanic styles, but like they changed a lot of it. It's very distinct. It's its standalone title, and yeah. And Breath of the Wild decided not to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm excited. I'm going to get it. I'm going to play it. I'm probably going to like it because I think it's going to have everything that I thought the first one was missing.
It's just the principle, and I understand.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm too cynical, and sometimes I feel like I'm that old man banging a pot on the street. Wake up, sheeple! Breath of the Wild's a bad game! They're lying to you! The birds are government surveillance cameras!
And there you go. And I feel like... But it's not that simple either, because you don't think it's a bad game.
I do.
You just think that you... Wait.
I don't know what I think anymore.
Because, it's a game that... This is what I think. What I've taken from this conversation. I feel that you enjoyed your time with it, and they did a lot of good things, but it didn't scratch the itch for you. It didn't take enough risks, and it didn't do enough of what they wanted to do. Right?
They made the most beautiful souffle. Just absolutely gorgeous. 5-star restaurant served straight in front of me. And I sat down and I took a bite and it tasted like water.
Oh, man. And you know what? Taste buds are different. And people are satisfied with, different things.
Some people like water.
And as of right now, I'm shield surfing and chugging water, and for the time being, that's just my opinion as of right now. Will it change as I near the end of the game and actually, finish it and do the final boss battle? Maybe, but I don't think that it's going to change how I feel about the experience I've had so far.
You want my opinion? Don't finish it. The ending is probably the worst part of the entire experience.
Yikes.
Leave it open-ended. Pretend there's no end and pretend Breath of the Wild 2 is starts halfway through your playthrough.
There's an idea.
I'm telling you. You finish it, you're going to come to me and you're going to be like, that was awful. What just happened?
I mean, I'm definitely going to put it off. Souffle filled with water. I'm enjoying it at the moment. And I guess we'll see. We'll see what they do with Breath of the Wild 2. Leave it in the comments below what you think about Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, please like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, and follow my go on our Patreon. Every dollar helps. Buy Smooth a patty melt. So this has been episode 1 of the Roost. We're working on a tentative schedule right now, so just relax, everybody. We're busy people, but this is fun. I enjoy doing this. I love talking about, I obviously love talking about games with you, And
Same, dude.
I'm glad that people enjoy our opinions, and please feel free to talk to us about it later. Like if you watch it, like we're always here. Until next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about what we're doing next, but it's another good one. So
They're all good ones.
they're all gonna be good ones. I mean, just come on, it's us, please. Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, y'all.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.